What kind of person do you picture if I ask you to think of an entrepreneur? What about a leader? Or maybe a job creator? Would any of them make the cut? What if I told you that we help 10 million young people achieve their goals every year, all over the world? And in turn, they create jobs and prosperity. JA has been preparing young people for successful careers since 1919. You find us all across the globe, in more than 100 countries. We're getting young people ready for work. And we get results. Our students go on to excel as professionals, taking control of their lives and careers, and some even succeed beyond their wildest dreams. JA students learn to do things like balancing a budget, negotiating deals, setting goals, and working in teams. It's hands-on learning from professionals with real-life work experience. All our programs are based in 3 fundamental principles: work readiness, financial literacy, and entrepreneurship. For example, in JA Company program, young people learn how to start and run a business. In JA Job Shadow, a student joins a mentor in a professional work setting. And students in the JA More Than Money program study the ins and outs of earning, spending, and saving. And these are only 3 of the more than 50 different programs that JA offers. Our network of staff, volunteers, and partner schools reaches young people all over the world, from major cities to rural communities and everywhere in between. And it works, because we pay attention to the needs in each region, and then we customize our programs so that JA students will be ready for the job markets they're about to enter. We even customize our own name. But at the end of the day, we're all one JA, JA worldwide. And the core of our organization is the same everywhere. JA inspires and prepares young people to succeed in a global economy. Whoever they are, wherever they are, JA activates young people for the future of jobs.
Welcome everybody to the first edition of J America's webinar series. We are very excited to kick off this series of webinars where we will be touching and discussing key aspects of not just, of course, junior achievement, but our mission, which is to inspire and prepare young people to succeed in this global economy. Let me also welcome all of the JA leaders across the region who are joining us today for this discussion. And of course, to thank today's speakers. Before I introduce them, I wanted to make sure that we set the stage in the right way. Today's topic is very important, and of course, it reflects what junior achievement is about. And it is not just why, but how to invest in education and youth in Latin America, a region with many challenges, but also, as we always say, with many, many opportunities. So let me, as a warm-up, to just share some key ideas, as I said, to set the stage. As we all know, this global crisis, the COVID, has been disrupted for every aspect of our lives, including, of course, education. It has had a great social economic impact as well. Just to give you an idea, in our region, 60% of school-age children missed last school year. In a country like I am, in Argentina, schools were closed during a full year. School closures also widen learning inequalities, extending the gap in skills focused on the current and future needs of the labor market. 1 in 2 15 years old Latin American youth does not reach minimum reading proficiency, as said by the UNESCO. Of course, the technological inclusion keeps accelerating with ever-increasing impacts on the labor market, as I said, including workers' displacement. At the same time, educational systems have been unable to respond in real time to the shifting demands, creating major gaps between the supply and demand of the qualified workers. 4 in 10 firms report they have difficulties finding workers with the right skills. 81% of young people in our region struggle to find a job in 2020. Definitely, we are seeing many challenges in every front. We saw them before 2020, and they have all accelerated during last year, and a crisis that we were all hoping that would end in 2021, it's not happening. Still, schools are closed in many of our countries, and all of these challenges are still there. And that's why, in this context, we thought it was very important to have a bold discussion with leaders and people that are sensitive to what is happening out there, but not just sensitive, but they are active part of the solution. So today's panelists are very good friends of Junior Achievement. Dominique Virchaux, many of you know him because he has been serving as a committed board member for many years now. And we can say we have a strong board thanks to Dominique. He was the one knocking doors, convincing very influential business leaders to join Junior Achievement Mission. He's the president for South America for Ferry, based in Sao Paulo, but with a second home in Miami. I think he's now in Miami, connected from there. Dominique has conducted numerous high-level assignments across multiple industries and geographies, not just in Americas, but also in Europe. Again, thanks, Dominique, for accepting today's invitation. A pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you, Leo.
And we also have today Maritza Vela, who is private sector project specialist at the IDB Lab Inter-American Development Bank, based in Washington, D.C., enjoying hopefully a warmer climate these days. She's passionate about improving lives through multi-stakeholder partnerships at the Innovation Lab of the IDB Group. Maritza is also our champion for the Emplea Tech, a joint initiative that we have created with the IDB. And I have known her for many years now. And from the moment I met her many years ago in an event in Ecuador, she was already passionate about finding solutions for youth, and now also wearing the lens of technology. And of course, with a great knowledge when it comes to private sector involvement with solving key issues as the one I presented. So let's start now with some of the questions we have prepared, and hopefully this will be an interactive webinar. We will then have room at the end for questions from the audience, but we will now go through the ones we thought were critical for today's conversation. So we will start with you, Maritza, first.
Sure.
So as I said, the pandemic has showed the potential of technology as a key enabler of education. It has also revealed the huge inequalities in access to technology and digital learning. Can you comment on the importance of technology as a resource in education, and what are the key challenges facing our region in particular?
Mm-hmm. So good morning, everyone. It's great to see Leito, and who says no to Leo and who says no to Junior Achievement. When he said, can you participate? I was like, JA is dear to my heart. And I love the video. I hadn't seen it. Congratulations. It really shows the passion that JA has with this very important task of providing kids with the tools to succeed in life. And although Leo talked about the challenges, I would like to add a couple more that are shocking, because before the pandemic, inequalities in terms of access and quality of learning were there, and a high dropout rate of vulnerable students was present. But unfortunately, the pandemic exacerbated these problems. 165 million students could not attend school. That's a huge number. But also the learning gap between rich and poor students increased by 25%. Because sometimes The statistics are general, but here it's shocking to see between rich and poor students, because as you know, some students were able to connect easily. They have computers at home and they have connectivity, but poor students do not have the luxury of having a computer or an iPhone or any technological access, no? But also women lost their jobs and their income because they had to stay home. A lot of them work in the service industry, in tourism, etc. And they had to stay home and become teachers in many cases without the experience and the patience of wonderful teachers that wonderful teachers have. But also domestic violence increased terribly in our region, which is very sad. And all this, it's estimated that will cause a 5.5 decrease in GDP. So this affects human capital and productivity. That's why focusing on providing access to quality education is what would help decrease inequality in Latin America and boost productivity. But in a crisis scenario, this task is complex. I would say daunting, especially for the governments, because they face limited budgets and they have new demands. One of these demands is hybrid education. Just think of it. If some schools don't even have running water to provide water for the kids to wash their hands and to do social distancing, how are they going to have connectivity and computers, etc., so that kids can keep learning? So it's digitalization is crucial. It's a must now, and it's also an opportunity. It is a challenge because connectivity is a big issue in the region. I think Chile is one of the countries that has the best connectivity, and it's around 70% from what I recall. But there are other extremes like Suriname, where connectivity is extremely limited. But some governments have worked out using radio, TV. So there are other types of technology that represent a temporary solution. But I think the whole region has to make an effort to improve connectivity and digital education. And there have been experiences of public and private sector work in results-based payments, in edutech solutions, in collaboration and infrastructure, but there's a need to have this collaboration in terms of technology. And one last thing that is super important for vulnerable populations is the provision of social-emotional skills. And before the pandemic, we've had projects that try to provide those via platforms. It is not impossible, but it's very difficult because we have to consider the type of population that we're targeting. And it is kids who don't have role models, who don't have the culture of work, and who need guidance, who need mentors, who need these role models that they don't have at home or that they don't have in their communities. So social skills are super important. And I end with that, Leo.
So what you're saying is, I mean, we were already in troubles. What it's happening is that we are facing incremental challenges in every area where we already had huge gaps.
Mm-hmm.
And things like access to technology, which was a luxury in some schools, now you can compare that with having access to water, because other way it means not having access to education if they don't have access to technology. So one more, I'll ask you one more question regarding the aspect of quality of education, but more specifically, quality of technology education. I mean, how could we improve that specific area? Because of course you have the kind of the regular and formal education, which is learning to read, learning math, but not technology has become even more important. So how can we improve, accelerate when it comes to quality technology education?
Well, I think that you have to realize that there's a lot of evolution in terms of technology, that it changes constantly, and that you have many providers. So I think it's important to test the solutions and to generate evidence so that you make sure that you get the impact and the results that you're looking for. And technology comes in different flavors, to give it a name. And I think you have technology like through apps, and if you think of how children are now, many of us have children, and they it's like they were born with it. They're glued to their phones, or they just know how to manage technology much better than some of us that are above 20 years old. And I think we have to try to, reach out to them with what they like and to engage them and to make learning something that is fun, and that we, make sure that we guide them in the use of technology. And I don't know if you want me to stop here or if you want me to.
No, I think
No.
like I want to remark the fact that it is about making the process of learning something that is connected to real life, so they see a sense, they see a meaning, why they are learning technology, for example, but also, as you said, so they find a different meaning for technology, which is not just, being on social media, but it could be much more than that. And if they have fun in the process, even better, right? So thanks for your comments. Now I will go to you, Dominique, and I think you're bringing to this discussion the employer perspective, because you have many conversations. I'm sure you have many conversations every day with people that are out there that needs to keep up with the global competition, and they need the task force, the human resources to strive, and it's not being easy. So if you think about the educational systems, which are the skills or things that they should be doing more, like training more and making sure that young people are learning more because employers are expecting so? Which are those skills and competencies in need from your perspective?
Thank you, Leo. Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here, and I agree with Maritza. When J.A. Leo calls, you respond present and you contribute and you participate. I've had the privilege to be around the region, within the region, in the region for many years. And I always remember when I had my first assignment in Latin America, one of the things that I was very passionate about is education. Because at the end of the day, education is the way to growth. It's a way to economic growth. It's a way to stability. And it's also a way to consolidate the democracy. And I think we should not lose sight of what education means. And then so when you have the opportunity to do that with JA, and you gave a great introduction about JA, Leo, there's one thing I guess I would like to add is, number one, JA is one of the largest global education organizations. And when I mean global, with a presence in 100 countries, it's obviously makes it having an impact in all of those places. But in my view, and most important, it is the best global education organization. And I think for the private sector to participate, to share, to partner with JA, it's one way to add our little drop in the bucket of global education. So in terms of the skills that are required, interestingly enough, and Maritza mentioned a few things, they are primarily soft skills, and that's a reality. We need people who have communication skills, who have leadership skills, who understand what it is to work within a team, teamwork, who has the ability to change the way they learn, who can be self-manager of their own development. And I think we had said also that the younger generation, the very young generation, the below 20, they have excelled at that in the last 12 months because they have developed technical skill within the broader sort of topic of technology incredibly well, incredibly fast, and with incredible resources. We need individual young generation who are able to solve problems, who are open-minded. And that's why we need that's what we need to do to help them grow in those areas. Obviously, the computer skill, the analytical skill, the artificial intelligence, it sounds like it is a complicated word, but it is not. And it's really part of the, I guess, of the curriculum of what we need to have today. And if I look at 5 years down the road and expanding on those more of a generic concept, analytical thinking will be critical because you will need to make decisions faster. Innovation will continue to be sort of on the front line. Any of us today, we're not doing what we were doing a year ago. But I also can guarantee you that any of us today will not do what we do today in 12 months. So this ability to innovate constantly will be there. The complex problem solving, and that's also through the help of technology, is there. And we can teach kids to do that from very early on. But I also think they can teach us how to do that because they're really skillful at doing that. And there's another element which is important, and that's what we try to do within JA with all of our alumni, is social influence. And social is a very big term. It's not social network. It's social in your family, in your school, in your friends, a lot through Zoom. It's true, a lot through Zoom today. But the ability to have an influence on others to move in the direction you are going to. But we still have a very basic sort of issue or reality to deal with. And that hasn't changed with the pandemic, unfortunately. You know, it's still a teacher in front of a class transferring what she or he knows. I mean, they know it extremely well. They know the book. They know the story. They know the lesson in math, in history, in geography. They know that well. But they transferring it in front of the class. Today, they transfer it in front of Zoom. And I think the way it has to, and that's where the private sector can help, is really helping people to work on problem solving through teamwork, as opposed just listening, trying to learn and remember the great sort of lessons from your teacher. And because of technology, education can be fit for purpose. In other words, not one size fits all. And those are the area where, retrospectively, I had a hope after 12 months, we would have advanced a little bit. I'm sure we have in many cases, but in many other areas, we have not, because it's still, I have grandchildren. And I know when I go to their house during the day, they're at school on Zoom in front of the teacher. So that hasn't changed much. And I think we have an opportunity to change that.
So Dominique, what you're saying is definitely there is a need for educational systems across the region to incorporate these skills and to make it as explicit as possible that students are going through the process of learning such as skills. And it is not just about math or about social studies. And you mentioned something, because it's related to the next question I had for you. You said the private sector has a role to play. In the past, it was considered that education was a sphere that belonged only to the government, that was, training the teachers, making sure the infrastructure was there, and developing curriculum. But you said that the private sector has a role to play. Could you further explain that?
Yeah, well, it is obvious, because we have to take that in our hands. I mean, if you think about your business continuity, no matter what business you are in, you have to have prepared and educated people. This is part of your responsibility. This is part of the mission. And if you look at today in the corporate social responsibility program of many organizations, not only the big guys and the large one and the global one, but at the country level, you could see a mid-sized company in Peru, a larger size company in Argentina. They do incorporate the corporate social responsibility within it. And in that, there is a clear aspect of education. Now, where the private sector can help, again, it's on building those soft skills. So you have the very first one, which is mentoring. We know, and we were mentioned, and I had someone told me recently, and I've used it a lot because I think it's great. They say children don't learn, they imitate. within reason, right? It's not exactly, you cannot make it a blank statement. But in terms of the learning through imitation or imitating other than learning, that's what mentoring is about. So you need to have someone, it doesn't have to be, it's never someone who's famous because you don't have access to those people, but it's someone in your environment, someone in your family, again, someone in your school, someone in the organization. So a systemic mentoring program really help the young generation. And the more you do, the more they will ask, and the more benefit you will get back. Another area is assessing the people. What are their skills? What do they like, and what is it they do not like? How do they react to certain situations? What is their skills? What is their value? What is their interest? What motivates them? Once you identify, then obviously your career development program, again, it's not going to be one size fits all. All the people who join our organization on July 2021, they have to go through course A, B, C, and D. Not at all. There will be 100 new joiners, and they will have all access to different programs based on what they need and based on the assessment they have received. I think those two are absolutely critical. And once you've done the assessment, you can develop individualized learning plan. Again, technology is right there to do that. And that has to be very systematic. Organizations who are sort of working on getting people at a younger age within the organization, you obviously had a classical, and it's been around for long, is the internship. But I have a sense that in the region, the internship, because of the pandemic, has been somewhat reduced, That's my view. That's what I hear when I talk to organizations about what is their internship program for the summer. I think on the technology front, there is a lot of it, and there are more, and they continue. But many other areas, internship has been reduced. And to me, internship is the first part when you have the opportunity to learn who you are, what you like, and that's what organization is providing to you.
So definitely there is an expectation from the private sector that is not about maximizing profit anymore. It's about maximizing impact. And with all of the value that private sector can bring to education, there is no way I think the society would miss such an opportunity. And we see also that the public sector is more open and willing, to cooperate with the private sector, with the civil society as well, to put a joint effort towards education. And this is actually related to what I want to ask you, Maritza, now, because the IDB lab and the IDB, I think for many, many years have been a key player putting multi-stakeholders alliances together to leverage impact and to bring the best innovation, the best ideas and the best teams to work together towards very complex challenges like the one with education. So from your perspective and with your large experience bringing partners together from different sectors, how do you think that we can make things even better, and how important it is to bring a collective impact? You're on mute, Maritza.
Sorry, this happens every day. Okay.
No, it works well now.
Technology. The platform kicked me out and I went back in. Technology never fails.
There you go.
To fail. First, I have to say that I love the way Dominique sees the management of human capital and how to, profit from the expertise of people and how to, bring the best traits out. I think I'm going to knock on your door and ask you for employment, Dominique. I think
we can talk anytime, Maritza.
Okay.
If you want.
If all employers thought like you do. But going back to Leo's question, I think that for this type of complex issues such as ideal education, you need a multisectoral approach. And Dominique was talking about the private sector. And I think what works best is when you identify what the private sector needs. the skills that they require. Because let's face it, when kids get out of school, even if they graduate from high school, they're not ready for work. Some kids don't even finish university and are ready for a job. And let me give you just one example. There was an investor in Silicon Valley, a Bolivian guy, who realized that kids coming out of university in Bolivia from computer science did not have the skills required, and he created a software company in Bolivia. What he did is develop a curriculum to be able to train these kids to have the adequate skills to employ them in their company. So imagine in lower levels, kids who haven't even finished school. So first, identify the needs, work closely with private sector to see what needs they have, what technical needs they have, and provide the social-emotional skills that Dominique did a great job listing all of them. And I think there is one that is really important now, and it's the need to adapt. You need to keep learning constantly because technology is changing, everything is changing constantly, and with digitalization, it's even faster. And when we're talking about vulnerable populations, NGOs are crucial. Grassroots organizations are super important because they are right there. They know what people need. They have the trust of the vulnerable populations, and they can bridge, this population with the public and the private sector. So we need the public sector to reach scale, to finance. They have the muscle to finance. So I think you need the private sector's vision and innovation, and it could come from startups and companies that have this vision and that they know the systems that have to be in place. And you need the employers and you need the financiers in the public sector. So it's a no-brainer. You need the three of them together. And as you know, Leo, we had a program that tried to achieve that was called NEO, New Employment Opportunities. And it's hard to reach alliances, but you have to if you want to get somewhere. And what we're doing at IDB Lab now is that we're working with startups because they are far ahead in terms of innovation for education. Yet, EduTech, for you guys to have an idea, there was an investment of $4 billion globally in EduTech. And that was in one semester in 2020. That was half the investment that took place in a decade before. So it's gone really high. But the sad thing is that although it increased 146%, only 3% went into Latin America. So there is a need to invest. And we invest through venture capital funds. We participate in about 150 funds. And we invest in 50 funds. And we invest in about 150 companies. And some of them are in the education line. So we're trying to identify those that have ideal solutions and embracing programs. In Brazil, we have a new program that will work with schools in Belo Horizonte to test something that would work out. So we're engaging the public sector to see how things work and hopefully scale. Imagine if we managed to scale something in a country as big as Brazil. It would be a dream come true. But navigating government systems is complex. So you need someone like the IDB to try to figure out, because we know our public branch at the IDB knows how to navigate that. We know about the startups and the publics and the private sector, and we try to connect them. And we try to help the startups that have a hard time with GovTech solutions because they don't know how to do procurement. They don't know how to break that wall and get there and get the trust of the government. So that's why it's super important to have this type of alliances. And I cannot not mention our alliance with JA. And ojo, Leo didn't pay me to say this, but I think we were ahead of the curve with JA, because before the pandemic, we designed a project that included technology, basic technology, softwares like Python, etc. And we partnered with SAP, a tech company, to be able to provide training to kids that would, have step foot in small software or technology companies, step foot. Because Dominique was saying it's important to get training, to get some type of experience, because it's a catch-22. When kids go to look for a job, they ask for experience, and they don't have track record, they don't have experience, but you have to give them that, give them the chance. And this program was with us, of course. So you have IDB Lab, and what JA brought to the table was their knowledge of this type of population and their alliances already forged with the public sector, with schools, because it's not easy to get into schools. We've done it in some programs, but it's not that easy. So I think JA is super well positioned to do this, and should try to do this type of alliances and programs in many more countries.
So definitely having sectors complementing each strength in a way, but also having, as you started saying, this demand-driven approach, where we are making sure that efforts are towards the specific needs, so we can solve specific challenges that we have. And the example of Emplatec, we were definitely ahead of the curve, as you were saying. Because, of course, making sure that young people are excited about the economy of knowledge is a challenge in itself. And once they see the potential and then you give them the tool, it's when things start happening. So, and again, thanks for being part of that initiative and championing the idea from the very beginning. I want to go back again to you, Maritza, with something you mentioned at the beginning. You talked a little bit about education and equality or inequality. Why it is so important to talk about it? You mentioned some matter of gender issues, but why do you think we need to be explicit about that specific challenge of education and inequality?
I think it's very important. And I think Dominique touched on that, because you need to educate the population, not only because you need them to be educated for productivity so that they can work and be productive and have a future and a good economic situation, but you need to educate them because we need educated populations to have democracies. I was touched by that, because I think Latin America has, and I don't want to get into politics here, but I think an educated population is able to make choices that are right, that would take them in the right direction. And if they're not educated, you lose that chance. And we've had a lot of ninis in Latin America, and they don't work, they don't study, they don't produce, and they get into violence, and they generate problems, and it's very hard for the governments to manage this. And there's a loss of productivity as well. And I would like to touch the gender thing again, because women in Latin America need to be given a priority, not only from a gender perspective of equality, but from a business perspective. There's evidence that women who are in boards make more equitable decisions. There's more productivity, and women make purchasing decisions at home. So it's a no-brainer. You have to empower women, because they manage the household better. They provide this equality and the good decisions in businesses, and their investments are going in a better direction, I would say, for the family and even for the businesses. So I think it's really important to have that gender lens.
And I know you, Dominique, are very passionate about equality, diversity. I have experienced that with what you have done with our board, where you set a clear agenda of securing diversity that would shape the culture of the organization. Anything you would like to add about education and equality?
Yeah, and I was not at all wanted to do politics when I talk about education in democracy, but it's clearly the base to help us grow in that direction in the region. And we've seen numerous cases when that happened. Actually, the the GDP growth of that country increases because of that. That's a much longer discussion. The reality of inequality or diversity today it's a fact, and we've seen a lot of that happening in the US, and it's sort of a new conscience around it. But the way I would summarize it is diversity is a fact. Inclusion is a behavior, and that's what we need to do. And the inclusion of women, we know women in the microcredit activity, the loans that are not paid back is extremely low because the majority of the loans are given to women and they pay back the loan. So absolutely supporting Maritza's point of view, what they do at the board level, but then when they do at the micro credit level, it's the same situation. So this inclusion is part of the education. And I think when we see again the role of the private sector, yes, ideally it would be partnership with government. That's what has been done traditionally, and there are hundreds of cases around the world where that has worked successfully, very much so. So that has to continue. But because of what we lived the last 12 months, we have to accelerate the pace. We have to accelerate the transformation. And I think that's where the private sector have a very big role to play in terms of investing and developing the education. You have to find a reason for that. You may have many reasons to do that. And again, it's not because it's not only in the territory of the large multinational. Every enterprise in any country can play a role. You have to define why you do that. Is it because you want to give access to education to less privileged people? It's because you want to fill a gap in your community? Is it because you want to raise the standard of education in your society? Is it because you want to provide job opportunity in your environment? So there are countless reasons. But if you think about it, all of those reasons are part of your business mission. I have to have the right people, develop them, keep them, pay them to achieve my mission. And once you have that defined, then obviously you have to find a way to invest in education as part of your corporate responsibility. What we have also seen lately, because of the partnership with multilateral organization and government can be somewhat slow. We have a number of examples. There's one very good example in France. It's called University 41. It's Paris-based, and it's been funded 100% by a successful tycoon IT individual. Very forward-looking, very creative. And he has no requirement about what is the entry-level education that you have. You may have nothing. You may be a sports person. You may have no formal education. But the only thing they give you is a test, an assessment when you get into the school, and depending on the results, you're accepted or not. And he's taking 1,000 kids a year. Now, 1,000 kids a year is not going to change the world. But if 1,000 company in 1,000 country takes 1,000 kids a year, we will change the world. We also have started to see, I think it was IBM, if I'm not mistaken, they have said recently they will no longer require a college degree to hire their colleague, the new joiner at a certain level. But that also gives you a real picture that what's provided as education in the public sector doesn't fit what IBM needs. So they're going to have other way of measuring what they need, and they're going to help them grow. So that is, in a sense, it's also a private-public partnership because they take people from the outside. They don't have the, curriculum, high school, college, MBA, languages, and all of those great things. But they have something in their brain which IBM and I think it's IBM actually, can assess and help develop. So yes, partnership ideal, but I think company have to move faster. And if we want to be ready for 2025 with the skills that are required, we won't have time to wait to have an agreement with all of those governments. So it's not one versus the other. It's 1 + 1 + 1.
And actually, there is a question here from the audience related to these sustainability related issues, such as climate change, diversity. I mean, the question goes, how can we better equip young people to address these social issues professionally? Because there are a lot of discussion happening at the high level, governments, companies, but now when it comes to equipping our young people to address these issues, how do you?
Yeah, so there is this is actually a question I can spend a week answering, because I'm really passionate about that. I can tell you why. I don't think you have to teach them a lot. You have to listen to them. Talk to any 12 years old who has built a TikTok around climate change, and you'll be amazed. The fact is, we don't listen to those people. If you're in an organization and people are starting to join your organization when they're 22, 23, so that they finish their formal education, they smart, and you want them, listen to them. I talked before about mentoring, because this is an opportunity for the younger generation to learn from people who have a little more minds. But you know what to me is most important is a reverse mentoring. I learn a lot more from someone who's joining me in my office in Santiago tomorrow with 1 year or 2 years of experience, or just fresh out of school, than I learned from a colleague of mine in Paris, London, or New York, because we have this way of doing things. And what absolutely I don't want to do is to continue this way of doing things. So we have to listen, we have to give them a voice. And in that sense, JA has an incredible opportunity, because those are the people we're talking to. There's other technical issue, and there's obviously more sophisticated program, but it really starts by listening to them. I saw earlier this week a TikTok of a 9-year-old young lady, younger, and I was amazed. I was absolutely amazed. If you had asked me and Korn, Ferry, and IBM, and JA to come up with something, it would not have been as good, because we would have complicated things to do nothing. So listen to those, and you will get many, many answers.
That's a good point. And Maritza, since you are in touch with startups and business leaders who are coming with, I think, with a different perspective, as you are saying, Dominique, I mean, young people are definitely coming with a different perspective, fresh, open-minded. Are you seeing the same thing, Maritza, when it comes to startups, when they deal with diversity, inclusion, and so on?
Yeah, it's we have a program called We Exchange, which is a platform for women entrepreneurs, and it's amazing, because you hear this 22, 23-year-olds that have already started a business. Some are already, fundraising for a Series A or Series B, and they are so passionate about what they do. It's not always social causes, I must say, but a lot of them, they don't even think about inclusion or diversity. It's embedded already. And I'm happy to live in the US, because I think my children were born colorblind. They don't know the difference of social classes, etc., which in Latin America permeates. And they have passion for climate change. Any kid has, because there's a generation of awareness for it that unfortunately we didn't have when we were young. And they're creative, but I think they bring passion to the table, and they're fighters. They are go-getters. But I think Dominique was saying that there's this reverse mentoring, which is very valuable. I think it's a two-way street, because they have to learn from experience. They have to learn to have criterio, judgment. They have to learn to have judgment, and to be able to use that impetus that they have, but in the right direction. But I agree that you learn a lot from them, and that we have a wonderful generation that can teach us a lot.
Thank you very much.
One comment about technology and the use, which I think is we all say, they spend their day on their iPhone and their iPad and looking and doing things, which is true in a sense, right? But one thing that technology has given to the youth, that has given them a voice and a way to participate, and a way to have an opinion, and a way to move the opinion. And I think we cannot let that aside. That has to be part of our conversation, and that has to be part of how do we build a model for the education for tomorrow. So there is there's benefit, and there are something that maybe not so good, but definitely the voice they have today, to me, is absolutely essential when you think about, where we want to go. We have always this discussion about process and technology, and I think most organizations somewhat can manage process, someone can manage technology, but what makes the difference is the people.
The people now with a voice which is amplified, as you're saying. So impact is leveraged, definitely. There is one last question from White Charles from Paraguay. I'll ask you a 1-minute answer because we only have 2 minutes before we close. So when you seek for a job, they ask you to have 2-3 years of experience. When you try to have an internship, there are not a lot of opportunities out there. How can we deal with the lack of experience and employers asking to have experience for a first job?
Yeah, I think also very often, and it's normal, Leo, is when you want a first job, so you want the ideal job, right? I want to work in company X, I want to do that job in that position because either my dad, my teacher, my older brother told me this is the way to go. Well, you may not find that. So that's when transformations start hitting you. But that same, another company in another city, in another position, will look for someone like you who have that capability, who have that leadership skill to seek that opportunity. So don't get stuck on, I want to be in that city, in that organization, in that position, because the CEO and all the senior people, they've done that. That's not the route. If that works, good for you. You must be incredibly good. But for most of the people, it may not work on the first time. So look at something else. Be open and do things.
Humble.
Be humble. Be humble. Be vulnerable. That's what we told the leaders today. The CEO job is to be humble, vulnerable, and listening and empathy, which is great. But you can start building those skills very early on.
So with this, we are closing to be on time. Again, thanks Maritza and thanks Dominique for allowing us to have this conversation, to amplify the message and to raise the awareness of the importance of investing in good and quality type of education. Thanks all of you for joining us. Thanks our leaders out there making things happen when the context is telling us to stop, and we continue to deliver our programs and impacting in the life of our young people we serve. Thank you, and until next time. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you,
Leo.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Maritza.
Always a pleasure. Bye-bye.
Ciao, ciao.